Today is February 18th, 2025. This is First Alert Plus, and I want to thank Taylor Eaton for telling me that my microphone was muted for the past 5 minutes. Sometimes you got to fix that. It is First Alert Plus. I'm meteorologist Nicholas Snyder here. We're talking about a winter storm that will be moving its way into our area in the coming 24 hours or so, and we have to track it. I want to show a few things that we're seeing here over portions of the United States. We're going to start out in Springfield, Missouri, our sister station KYTV. And again, we'll show you a few of these cameras here that will give you an idea. Lots of images coming out of these general areas here. And these are all showing some heavy snow falling in parts of the Ozarks in southern Missouri and, of course, northern Arkansas. This is US 60. This is not our US 60. This is US 60 in Republic, Missouri, showing some of that heavy snow. A few of those cameras, Bull Shoals Lake over here in northern Arkansas, showing some of that heavy snow there as well. Ozark, Missouri, US 65. Again, this is out of our sister station KYTV in Springfield, Missouri. Here's another picture of Arkansas. I mean, visibility is very low out there. You can see the heavy snow falling, and again, eventually that is what's going to be headed our way in the coming days with a nasty winter storm, again, impacting those areas within the United States. So let's get right into what we're seeing. Let's get back to that water vapor satellite imagery to give you an idea, again, of what we're looking at here. Moisture streaming in from the Gulf, and that moisture lifting up and over this warm front right here. And that's going to be what's producing that heavy snow. Notice the warm front stretched further to the east, and eventually that warm front, yes, is going to be making its way into our region, causing the development of some portions of the area seeing some heavy snow. Not everyone's going to see that heavy snow. It's going to be mainly over southern portions of the viewing area, but definitely we are going to see it. I do want to mention too, this event is going to be a spread out event. It's going to be coming over a couple of days, multiple days. So you're going to have time for those crews to really clean off those roadways, especially with how light and fluffy that snow is going to be. So there's some good news for you right there. Let's get back to the weather maps. Let's zoom on into what we're seeing right now. Of course, mostly dry conditions over much of the area. With not a whole lot going on here. Still flood warnings in portions of the Ohio River and portions of the smaller creeks and streams, which, by the way, we will get to those flood warnings a little bit later on in the show, but first we have to talk about that snow. Even we did see a few flurries over southern portions of the WSAZ viewing area down into the coal fields of Kentucky and eastern Kentucky and southern West Virginia this evening. We did see that earlier on this afternoon as well. A lot of that activity has kind of faded away. We're seeing drier conditions, and those drier conditions are continued to be expected at least over the next few hours or so until this system, it's off to the west again into the Ozarks. You saw all those cameras in southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. That's the activity that's headed our way in the coming hours. Let's get into the meteorology of exactly what we're seeing. Of course, this is thanks to an area of low pressure that's moving on in, and it's driving some very impressive snow totals. Already they saw around 2.5 to 3 inches of snow down into portions of Missouri and Arkansas here along that US, or rather I-44 corridor here. And these were around 2 o'clock this afternoon, Central Standard Time. 2.5 inches over there, and we're talking about half an inch an hour or more of snow. 2 inches of snow accumulation, 12:45 p.m. Central Time. So it's been snowing basically for 5 straight hours there. They're probably having to deal with multiple inches of snow on the ground now, likely 5, 6, 7 inches of snow on the ground now over in that general area. They're expected to see over a foot of snow in portions of southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. Well, luckily, we're not going to be seeing activity like that, but we are going to be seeing multiple inches of snow in portions of the WSAZ viewing area. So again, let's get into the meteorology. It's this area of low pressure. It's tracking to the east. It's pulling in some moisture from the Atlantic and the Gulf. And again, that moisture will be set to lift up and over this front here and drive in the development of some snow into portions of the WSAZ viewing area. In fact, a good chunk of the WSAZ viewing area will be seeing this snow activity in the coming days. And for some of us, it could be a heavy snow But even though it's the general makeup of the snow is going to be a very light and fluffy snow, we could be seeing some heavy snowfall rates over the area, if that makes sense. Let's get into the futurecast. Again, we're seeing the snow start within the next few hours or so. And I want you to notice the deeper blues showing up here on the map. This would be over southern portions of the WSAZ viewing area, entering into eastern Kentucky within the next few hours or so. Those are the more steady, heavier snowfall rates that we will be seeing in that general area. And that's what we'll have to watch here moving forward. Let's clear this off. Let's keep the radar moving. Again, this would be around 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. You notice that deeper blue further over basically areas south of I-64 here. So Huntington, Charleston, points south. That's that zone where we're talking about some of the heavier snow totals. And as we move forward here, we're going to continue to see that kind of be an issue. Notice by the afternoon, though, I want you to notice things start to dry out, clear out, become a bit more isolated over the area. That's as some drier air kind of injects itself into the area, and we start to see some calmer conditions. So a lot of us will see a break in the snow and may only end up with a few inches on the ground by tomorrow afternoon and may be wondering, well, where's my 3, 4, 5 inches of snow that was expected? Well, we're not done after tomorrow. We have another round of snow coming tomorrow night into Thursday. Again, it's a 2-day event. It's more of a slow-motion snow event. The good news is those crews, again, they're going to have a good time, a pretty easy time clearing those roadways off because, of course, this snow is coming down at a rather slow clip. Also, a good news, if you're shoveling, it's a light, fluffy snow, so it's much lighter snow. The bad news is that this light, fluffy snow on back roads that aren't going to be treated, it's much slicker than that heavy, wet snow, and that's going to make travel a bit more difficult in the back road areas that don't get treated, especially in those areas that do see those multiple inches of snow. Let's move this into Wednesday night into Thursday. I mentioned the 2 rounds. This is the second round coming through. Wednesday night, and this round of snow that will be coming on through doesn't look that impressive on radar, but the temperatures are going to be so cold that we're going to be producing pretty much anything, any moisture that comes into our air is just going to be squeezed out of the atmosphere, accumulating on the ground. So an additional widespread couple of inches of snow on top of what we saw tonight and into tomorrow morning. And that's going to lead up to quite a bit of impressive snow totals in that regime there. So that's something we are definitely keeping an eye on closely. And then eventually everything clears out by Thursday morning. We maybe even see a few peaks of sunshine in the afternoon. But in the higher elevations, we could still see a few flurries. All right, this is more so of what we're looking at here. Of course, higher up in the atmosphere, we need to keep a close eye on everything that's kind of coming our way here. So this is our upper level wind. This is the European model, showing you exactly why most of that forcing is going to be over far southern portions of the area. Let's pause this 4 a.m. Wednesday. I want you to notice the deeper blues right in here, basically right here along the Smoky Mountains. Also this kink right here in the white lines. That's what we call a trough. And downwind of what we call those troughs is where you get that ascent, that upward motion. Meanwhile, again, like we've been talking about, in areas where the wind slows down, like you're driving on a highway, the cars get closer together once you start to realize that the traffic's kind of picked up, moving slower. That's what's happening here. The air's getting closer together, has nowhere to go but up. And so downwind of both that trough and that wind slowing down, that convergence of wind, we're going to see the development of some upward motion here. The development of heavier precipitation in this general area. Again, downwind of that wind kind of slowing down. This is the European model. Let's continue to move this forward. That's round 1 of snow. Round 2 of snow, again, coming Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Again, same thing, although a little bit less in terms of forcing that air up, because the wind at this point will be moving that way as opposed to that way. But still, we're going to squeeze out a little bit more of that moisture within the atmosphere. Now let's move this to the American model, the GFS, and it's really saying a very similar thing here. Again, you got the stronger winds right in here, and slower wind right up here. So right in this X that I'm about to draw is where you're going to see that strong upward motion to produce more of that precipitation. And that's where we're looking at far southern portions of the WSAZ viewing area, seeing more of that heavier accumulation, that convergence of the wind, lifting that air to produce more of that snowfall activity. Let's look at a combo. This is going to be an interesting graphic that we can show you to get you an idea of the amount of agreement between these two models as we move forward here. So both of these are the American and the European model. They're on top of each other. And notice how much of them really say the same thing. Very consistent. Fast winds right here, slower winds up here, creating that upward motion right in there, and stronger development of, again, heavier precipitation in that general area. Something we're going to watch closely for sure going into, of course, your morning hours of tomorrow. We'll clear off this map, and I do want to show you what we could be seeing as well going into the day on Thursday. Let's move this forward. Notice that next system coming through, and again, we're seeing a very similar thing here with that strong upward motion in that general area as well. So quite a bit of active weather again, and the majority of the heaviest precipitation should be confined to far southern portions of the WSAZ viewing area, which is why our snow forecast basically looks like that. Let's take a step lower in the atmosphere. Let's go back to the European model. This is about, I'd say, 1,500 to 2,000 meters above the Earth's surface. So we're talking about a kilometer up, a little over a mile high over the surface. This, we're looking for areas of kind of slowing down wind as well. And a way to do that is to find where these white lines kind of separate. Pressure gradients becoming weaker here. So there's one wind going this way, one pressure line going this way. So right here in this axis, you're going to see winds do something like this. Slow down quite a bit as well. And right in there, again, you're expected to see that enhanced vertical motion to produce some of that precipitation. Again, that would be over southern portions of the WSAZ viewing area. Same thing for the American model, the GFS, showing much of the similar situations where you have winds kind of turning to the left here, turning to the right here, and a little axis of things slowing down, upward motion right in here. And again, that matches up where we're going to see likely that heaviest precipitation fall over that portion of the WSAZ viewing area. Add this all up together, this is what we're going to get here for much of the area. Again, we're seeing that heavier snow begin to develop in that general area, southern portions of the viewing area like we showed you earlier. There's that future cast we were showing you earlier. And here's what we could be expecting as far as snow accumulations because of that. This is the moment everyone's been waiting for. Around 4 to 8 for Paintsville, Inez. 6 to 8 for places like Prestonsburg, for places like Salyersville, Pikeville. Maybe a little bit more in far southern Pike County where you see that darker orange color there because of the higher elevation terrain. That's kind of what we're thinking there. Meanwhile, for West Virginia, we're talking about, let's say, 6 to 8 Summersville, 6 to 8 Logan, 4 to 8 for places like Madison, 4 to 8 for Beckley, 3 to 6 for Charleston, 2 to 4 for Huntington, and then up into Ohio, much, much less because there's a lot less moisture, a lot less lift to work with up there. This is through 8 a.m. Thursday. Again, this is not what we're going to be seeing tomorrow afternoon on the ground after the first round of snow is done. It's a multiple round event. Really want to hammer that home. We're not going to be seeing this all come at once, and it's going to come down rather slowly. So again, the main road should be fine tomorrow. It's those back roads that we are really watching closely because it's that light, fluffy snow, very slick to drive on. And again, this is through 8 a.m. Thursday. So even if you do get a break tomorrow afternoon, which is what we're expecting a little bit of a break in that snow, you're not going to be done. We still have another round of snow coming tomorrow night and Thursday morning before everything will be done. And this is what likely a lot of us are going to wind up with come Thursday morning here. All right, so let's talk about watches and warnings. Of course, a winter storm warning is in place for a good chunk of the WSAZ viewing area. It's basically along and south of I-64. So to name those counties, that's Rowan, Elliott, Lawrence, Morgan, Johnson, Martin, Magoffin, Floyd, and Pike counties in Kentucky. That's Wayne, Lincoln, Boone, Logan, and Mingo counties in West Virginia. And that goes until Thursday morning. Winter weather advisory, meanwhile, for Kentucky in place for Lewis County, for Greenup County, Boyd County, and Carter County until Thursday morning. Cabell, Putnam, Kanawha, Clay, Western Nicholas, and Western Fayette counties in West Virginia, and Lawrence County in Ohio until Thursday morning. Not to be lost in all this, we're still seeing flooding around much of the WSAZ viewing area. Flood warnings do continue for a good chunk of the Ohio River. This is kind of the last of the flooding that we'll get through, although of course we're still seeing a lot of areas that are picking up from some of the floodwaters we're seeing. But mainly within the viewing area, we're talking about the Ohio River at Point Pleasant, a few creeks in Gallia County, a few creeks in Lawrence County, Ohio for that flooding. There's flood warning for, of course, the Ohio River at Huntington, the Ohio River at Ashland, the Ohio River at Greenup, the Ohio River at Portsmouth as well. Pretty much all downstream from where we saw that heavy rain this past weekend. So let's talk about, again, kind of what we have been seeing all around the region in terms of rivers, because a lot of us want to know what's going to continue to happen here. We've got a lot of requests about that. Well, the good news is let's pull up our hydro page from the National Weather Service. Where you see that green, that means those rivers are below flood stage. Even where you see the yellow, the rivers are below flood stage. The creeks and rivers that you're seeing below flood stage. Orange still indicates minor flood. So we are still in minor flood for places like the Ohio River, again, at Portsmouth, the Ohio River at Point Pleasant, the Ohio River over toward the Greenup area. Still seeing that minor flood stage over in that general area. But for our region, a lot of the minor creeks and streams that saw the majority of that flooding for much of the last weekend are not going to be seeing much in the way of flooding anymore. Waters are receding as we're moving forward here. So let's go into that. Let's talk about, of course, the stuff that is flooding right now. Zooming on into the Ohio River at Point Pleasant, we already hit our crest. There's your good news right there. Crest happened, at about, looks like 1:30 a.m. yesterday, 42.58 feet. Almost reached a moderate flood there in Point Pleasant, but things are coming down. Now, we're still in minor flood there. Latest observation at 41.07 feet. But by the time we get into the overnight hours of tonight, let's say just after midnight here, we're expecting that crest or that river to be below flood stage in Point Pleasant. Cleanup efforts outside of that flood wall, of course, because the town is protected by a flood wall, with the exception of a few areas like Twindowee Park, the amphitheater over there. Tony was talking to me about that yesterday, likely underwater. But things are calming down now in Point Pleasant. Some good news for you right there. Let's move a little bit downstream. Let's head over to the Huntington area. We are in minor flood in Huntington. Looks like we've already crested here as well. We crested at 51.01 feet, and that occurred around, let's say, 9:45, 10 o'clock this morning. And it continues to go down, so there's some good news for you right there. But we are still in minor flood stage. Won't get below flood stage till about 1 a.m. Tomorrow morning as well. So we're still keeping a very close eye on that. But again, things will be able to calm down there. And of course, that would mean just flooding for areas like Harris Riverfront Park, of course, the Guyandotte Boat Ramp, those general areas. By the way, the Guyandotte River still backed up from the Ohio River, and that's causing a whole bunch of issues over in the Barboursville area. We will get to Barboursville in just a second. Let's move over to Ashland. Ashland crested at 54.9 feet earlier on today. Looks to have been around 11:30 this morning, but this is coming down as well. We're still coming out of that crest. In fact, things are really starting to calm down in Ashland. This is also protected by a flood wall too, but the majority of that activity is still over at Riverfront Park, a lot of the lower portions of Riverfront Park and Ashland still seeing some minor flooding over there. Again, the good news is we're not seeing major floods along the major river, the Ohio River. The Ohio River is only cresting at minor flood, but still you're having some water issues here or there across the viewing area along that Ohio River. Of course, we saw those major issues along the creeks and streams and some of the smaller tributaries to the Ohio. And I promise you, we're going to get to that in just a second. But right now, we're focusing on the Ohio River to give you an idea. We're coming out of that crest in Ashland, should be below minor flood stage by 1 p.m. tomorrow. You see that right there on here, our hydrograph from the National Weather Service. Further downstream at Greenup, we are cresting as we speak, right at the line between minor flood stage and moderate flood stage. Looks like 55.5 feet. Of course, moderate flood stage, 56 feet. And that was a very close one. But again, things are coming down over there at Greenup, and things will look to be better along the Ohio River in Greenup over the coming hours here. Looks like we get below flood stage by 1 p.m. tomorrow. So again, it takes a little bit more time as we move further downstream and as we're dealing with that high water. Last check at Portsmouth, I know we've seen a lot of crazy pictures over there, the racetrack underwater, parts of State Route 73 as you go into the Hillsborough area further to the west. Right outside of downtown Portsmouth along State Route 73, you're still experiencing some high water concerns. Portsmouth is in that crest right now. They're at 53.62 rather feet, cresting right in the middle of that moderate flood, or rather minor flood stage. Will be coming below flood stage, I do believe, by tomorrow at 7 p.m. Of course, we'll be dealing with a few inches of snow on the ground over there in Portsmouth and really all around the area once that flood stage is coming down. But at least the waters will be coming down in the coming days, and things will be, again, looking better by tomorrow as far as that flooding is concerned. Now let's take a look at some of the smaller tributaries around the area. There are still a few that are in that action stage. For instance, the Leviza Fork at Prestonsburg still in the action stage. Coming out of that, though, and I'd say within the next couple of hours, this flood advisory that's down here for the Leviza Fork, at least at Prestonsburg, will be able to expire. Up in Paintsville, different story. We're still struggling to get out of there. In fact, we're still in action stage, no longer flood stage there at the Leviza Fork at Paintsville. But that crest coming down, and water levels still have yet to recede below that action stage at 28 feet. So you're still seeing maybe a few areas of high water, but no minor flooding at this point. Of course, they saw some moderate flooding up there at the Leviza Fork in Paintsville and in Prestonsburg, and there will be cleanup over in that general area for sure. Pikeville, big-time cleanup still ongoing. Of course, Williamson, Kermit, we saw Alex Jackson's reports from Mingo County, West Virginia. Lots of cleanup ongoing in that general area. So certainly still a lot to clean up, not only along the Tug Fork, but also the Leviza Fork here. A lot of these other areas in Kentucky, though, they have calmed down. The Little Sandy looks good. The Big Sandy at Fuller Station looks good as well. Let's move further to the east. I want to show you some good news here. The Guyandotte River over here at Branchland. This is where they monitor the river levels here. We're no longer even into the action stage. Now, I know it's going to take some time for those of us in Barbersville to not be dealing with minor flooding because of the backup from the Ohio River. Flooding is still being seen along the Guyandotte because of the Ohio River backup. The Ohio River is so high that it's kind of pulling back water into the Barbersville area, which is why Barbersville, you're still under a flood warning from the Guyandotte and the Ohio kind of interacting with each other. So until that Ohio River comes down, which it should come down below that flood stage by tomorrow, midday, we're still going to be seeing a few reports of high water here. We saw Victoria Ware's report of US 60 still being closed in that general area. Kind of the same idea here is what we're expecting over there along the Guyandotte River in Barbersville. But areas further upstream toward West Hamlin, towards Salt Rock, those areas generally in that region are going to start seeing some better conditions. In fact, the river coming down quite a bit below that action stage. Mud River, same thing. Let's go to that. That's going to be at Milton, West Virginia right here. Again, we're below that action stage. Things coming down quite a bit. And in fact, those river levels, they are reaching about where they normally should be right here. About 5 feet deep for the Mud River here at Milton. Coal River at Tornado, they saw some pretty interesting activity happen there. And again, this has come down quite a bit as well, right about to that normal area. So again, a lot of these locations further upstream of the Ohio River, inland from the Ohio River, seeing better conditions. But if you're along that Ohio River, the mouths of some of these rivers that enter into the Ohio River, yeah, you're going to be dealing with still quite a bit of active flooding over toward the Barbersville area where US 60 still closed down due to that flooding that is occurring over those portions of the WSAZ viewing area. All right, so we've had a very active February in store for sure. That has been a given over much of the WSAZ viewing area. It's been really just a nasty, very active February, including, again, this winter storm that is headed our way. There is some good news, though. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to show you what we're talking about here. The pattern's going to flip, at least for the end of February. I want you to notice how we kind of get into that green and we get into the lighter blue. And it's thanks to this area of cold air in the Arctic. Right in here. You'll notice that. That's keeping the cold air trapped up here. Couple that with this cold air entering into Alaska, which should begin to funnel this warmer air that's out in the western part of the country into our region. So we're looking temperatures not quite above average, but near average temperatures, so into those mid-40s, which again, we will definitely take over much of the area over, you know, what we've been seeing over the past really few weeks with those below average temperatures and that above average precipitation that we have seen. Much, much, much improved here. Again, we will take that for sure. A little bit of a closer look will show you kind of what we'll be seeing at more of a local scale, so let's move this forward here. Again, you'll notice a brief cool down behind this winter storm coming through tomorrow, but in general, slightly warmer conditions as this air in Alaska ejects the warmth out of Alaska into the United States. And eventually that warmer air into western parts of the country will invade and will look much better for the end of February going into March. However, there's signals as we head into the beginning of March that things are going to be on the cooler side for sure. So we're not done with winter as we go into March. Unfortunately, that is the first official month of meteorological spring there. And we will get a little bit of a taste of spring next week. But as we move into March, it is still going to be looking to be a colder one. So we'll have to enjoy that little taste of spring that we will be seeing next week. Temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center showing near normal temperatures here. So we're talking about temps into the 40s over the next 7 days, generally averaging out into that general area. And the good news I'm sure everyone wants to see, drier than normal conditions. Not a whole lot of precipitation to talk about. We need that for sure. And I know this sounds odd because even a couple months ago we were talking about extreme drought over portions of the area. Of course, this winter's just completely wiped that drought out. We're not seeing any sort of drought conditions over our area anymore. But these drier than normal conditions are certainly going to help the situation, help us clean up, and the warmer conditions of coming next week are certainly going to help the situation as well going forward into the end of February. But again, we're going to have to watch that March time frame. Things could change, and we could be seeing that next chance of another cold air outbreak coming on in. That's much further down the line, though. Let's focus on the midterm, in which it looks a lot warmer and a lot drier and more favorable for flood cleanup that could happen later on next week. This is First Alert Plus. Again, I'm Nicholas Snyder. We air this every Tuesday, 6:45 p.m., hopefully with no audio issues that we had like at the top of the show. My apologies for that. But again, you can catch us on all the digital platforms, WSAZ.com, the WSAZ app. And of course, we're on YouTube. If you're watching there, don't forget to subscribe and like. And of course, we're on Facebook as well. Don't be afraid to share that with everybody who wants to watch as well. Have a great night, everybody.